Can you hear me? You cannot hear me.
Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports. This is the JP Show.
JP, it is so good to hear you back on the air.
Stand by. Now, here's JP.
All right, a hearty Thursday. Good morning to you as we're coming to you live from our RHS TV studios in St. Petersburg. Joining me as co-host today, it is not Nick yet. It is the great Erik Erlendsson, Lightning Insider, who joins us this morning. Good morning, Erik. How are you? Can you hear me? You cannot hear me. This is not good. Erik, can you hear me? Check. Erik, are you here? Are you here? You cannot hear me for some reason. We will straighten this out right away. You know what we're going to do? We'll take a quick break, and I'll get this straightened out, and we'll come right back to talk to Mr. Erik Erlendsson. So stand by. We will do this real quick. Take a quick break. We'll get our spots in early, then we can go a full 45 minutes. The PGA Tour's Valspar Championship returns this March 16th to the 19th with 4 days of golf action plus the host of fun activities that make it Tampa Bay's hottest spring sports ticket. Sam Burns, who won in a thrilling playoff last year, is looking to make it 3 wins in a row on the Copperhead course at Innisbrook Resort. He will be challenged by a top field that includes Jordan Spieth, returning for the first time in 5 years. The 2015 Valspar champ counts 13 PGA Tour victories, including 3 majors in his career. It will be a great field and great fun. Tickets are on sale now at ValsparChampionship.com for all tournament days, both grounds tickets and premium ticket options. You don't want to miss the 2023 Valspar Championship. Hey guys, are you experiencing those feelings of getting older, lower sex drive, fatigue, hot flashes, moodiness, or you just don't feel like you had the vitality you once had? It's a chronic problem here in the United States. You're not just getting old, it's likely low testosterone. Studies over the last 20 years show a shocking decline in younger males aged 16 to 39. Older men have seen a sharp decline as well. So do something about it. Go see my friend Christopher Lugo at Bay Area Modern Medicine. Look, testosterone replacement is not a frivolous treatment. It takes a professional, targeted approach that focuses on
that. I'm good.
Wellness, vitality,
I had it on mute. That's my fault.
A one-size-fits-all approach like clinic. Blood work and adjust your treatment as optimal results. Folks, I've been on testosterone therapy
Check.
years, and it is a life changer. You will feel and look better than you did 10 years ago. Give them a call at 844-977-3477 or go to BAMMC.com. Tell them JP sent you for priority scheduling. That's 844-977-3477 or BAMMC.com.
Coming back at you.
Now, more with JP on FanStream Sports. It's only just begun.
All right, welcome back. Now we got you. What's up, Erik? How are you?
Rookie mistake, JP. Though I had the computer on mute. Here I am just kind of whittling away, and I thought, wow, how come I don't hear JP yet?
And I'm talking to you. I'm like, hey, Erik, what's up? You're on the screen. You got this blank look on your face. That's the way
I wasn't doing anything derogatory.
Absolutely. Well, welcome in, which is great because here I am, doing Nick's job this week and trying to get everything right. And I'm like, I got everything right. I think I pressed all the right. And he's not speaking to me. I'm like, oh, what did I do? I screwed up. And then it's like, you had the mute on.
I did. Easiest mistake in the world to fix, dude. Thankfully.
You know what's so weird about this? And welcome everybody to the show. JP Peterson, the great Erik Erlendsson. We'll be talking lots of Lightning today. Kevin Weiss from Locked On Rays is going to join us. We'll talk a little Rays. We're going to talk some soccer, some Team USA soccer. Lots of things that Erik likes to get into that normally I don't talk about because I'm not as knowledgeable as him. We will talk about today. So we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk music. We'll talk pop culture. We'll talk, Lord knows where this is going. So we'll have some fun with it today. So great start. Great start. So anyway, how are you? How are you this morning?
I'm good, but man, I'll tell you what, this schedule the Lightning are on,
Oh
this
my God.
19 games in 33 days, I don't know how the players do it. Like, I'm exhausted just from doing the radio and everything else, and I don't know how. And I've had a couple of days to at least enjoy myself and relax. But this is a tough schedule, and fortunately, they're coming close to the end of it. One more weekend, and then they'll actually get a couple of days off. So, other than that, I'm good though.
Well, yeah, it is. And I guess it's compressed for a lot of different reasons. You know, they got the 9 days off at the All-Star break, which clearly did not help the Lightning. They were,
does.
they were on a remember they were on a roll. They were playing their best hockey. They took those 9 days off, and they came back just a very low energy, complacent team. The way I would look at it, and more just because I talk about this emotional and mental fatigue. It's not just this latest schedule. It's 3 years of just nonstop high pressure hockey, which is almost unprecedented in the modern game. And they've got to find a way to recharge it. So a lull is almost it's so predictable, right? Absolutely.
It is, especially at this time of the year, right? Like, I go through this with fans who want to kind of jump off the ship a little bit once we get to a March schedule, because they're not playing their best and they're never going to have a chance in the playoffs and everything else. And it is a low in the schedule. I mean, look, the Lightning, the last 2 years in particular, by the time we get here, they're locked in.
Yeah.
They know they're in the playoffs, and they know who they're playing in the playoffs, and they most likely know where they're going to start the first round of the playoffs this year. And it is hard. The mental part of it is the toughest part, to be able to push yourself mentally to be to a point where you have to be focused every night. And you're just not going to get there right now, because it is the dog days. We're getting close. Tonight is the 79th game. So tonight there's only 12 games left in the regular season after tonight. So they're kind of getting, to a point where they know they got to kind of pick their focus up, because it's not a physical thing. The mistakes that they've made during the stretch are not physical mistakes. They're mental mistakes. They're focus mistakes. And, that's why you have to believe that a team that has been through what they've been through understands when they have to get there. Yeah. March is not it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's game 69, right? Not 70, 69.
69, yeah, sorry, 69.
Gronk would be mad at you if you got that wrong.
Yes.
69.
I feel shame already, yes.
And he'll be out at the Valspar tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon up there. We'll talk about Valspar. And we're going to really go deep into the Lightning. But as I mentioned, obviously, this is a big story. Baker Mayfield is now signed with the Buccaneers and may or may not be their next starting quarterback. Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield. Okay. All right. And here's we were talking about this yesterday, Erik, and people thought I was kind of crazy, but once we were done talking about all my golf buddies, we're like, yeah, folks, this offense is going to be better with Baker Mayfield than Tom Brady. I said it. That's right. I said it. Because Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady last year. So the name itself is just, forget that. This offense was awful. 18 points a game, historically awful. And now you got a guy that's going to come in and certainly doesn't have the pedigree of Tom Brady. I get that. But at this point in his career, he can throw the ball downfield. He can move. He can throw on the run. He's going to be a perfect fit for this Dave Canales offense. And then I guarantee you, they're going to score more than 18 points a game. So whatever you want to say about the names of the quarterback, this offense will be so much more exciting than that crap we saw last year. Sorry to say it that way, but it was awful. All due respect to Mr. Brady, he would tell you that first and foremost. So are you excited about the Baker Mayfield experience?
I like it. And who'd have thought here we wouldn't be so excited about the former number 1 overall pick as compared to the 7th round pick, right? Like, it's crazy.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
But I like the addition, because I don't think you could have went into this season everybody wants to talk about Kyle Trask and Kyle Trask. And yes, I know, what was it, a second round pick they used to bring him in. And, oh, you got to give him a chance. You got to give him a chance. And I don't disagree with that necessarily, but you can't go into the season thinking Kyle Trask is the answer because you don't know the answer. So you have to bring in a guy that's going to compete and at least has pedigree and has an opportunity to be the guy. And I think where Baker's at in his career with this deal, it's 1 year. He's trying to prove himself. He's trying to get back on track. I thought he had a couple of decent years in Cleveland and taking them to the playoffs. And, then it just kind of went downhill. But when you have weapons like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you can't rely on just Kyle Trask and hope that it works. At least now you've got somebody that can make it work because you've seen it. He has a track record. And look, maybe Kyle Trask has an unbelievable camp and beats out Baker Mayfield.
Great.
That's possible. That's what you want, that competition.
Exactly.
And that's what Baker Mayfield coming in does for this team, is it creates not just experienced guy back there at least, but it also creates that competition.
Absolutely. And whatever sport you cover, and you covered a lot, Eric, but obviously mostly hockey, there's nothing like competition to make everybody better. And that's exactly what happens when he walks in the room. Now, are you getting the bombastic, cocky Baker Mayfield? I think he's been humbled in this league, obviously, when you go through what he's gone through. But I say this all the time. So much about quarterbacking and in sports in general is where you go and how you fit in. And who are the coaches around you? What's the organization around you? Great players can get ruined by crappy organizations and crappy coaches. And people, I think fans just feel like, oh, every coach is competent. Nope, not true. there are some real idiots out there, and it happens. And you look at the situation he had in Cleveland: 4 different head coaches, the number 1 overall pick in a football crazy town. A lot of pressure is on you. A lot of crappy people around you in that organization, and you have to go out every week against very well-run organizations and get your ass kicked. And then you're the one that goes to the microphone and has to, not throw your team under the bus and take all the hits for it. Look, it's not an easy ask in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not making excuses for Baker Mayfield, but when he's had consistency in that 1 year they went to the playoffs and a good team around him, he fit in perfectly. 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. He ran the ball pretty well. I mean, he was an efficient quarterback, and that's what you hope to provide him this year. If you look at all the years that he's had, and you look at what teams and organizations and coaches he's been around, you zero in on that playoff year, and it looks a lot like what the Bucs have. Good receivers, and I think he had Landry and Odell Beckham in that particular year. A good defense around him, some competent head coaching in that particular year. And what happened? They went and won a playoff game. So, and last year he won a couple days in camp. He comes in off the bench and rallies them from 16-3 down in the fourth quarter with an 80-yard drive. I mean, he looked like a seasoned quarterback in that particular moment. So I see so much upside here. And the fact is, you were shopping at freaking Walmart. You weren't shopping at Tiffany's. You were shopping at Walmart. You came out with a really good rollback deal. I mean, yet you could turn the corner, you see that thing you've been wanting to buy, and it's about $50 less than you, and you're like, damn, I've been wanting that anyway. Let's go. And you get him for $4 million. And now you got Trask, you got Mayfield. I think you're probably going to draft a quarterback. So you're balling on a budget. The Bucs are. They've got Levante back yesterday. They were able to sign Jamel Dean. I mean, if you'd have told me this scenario 2 weeks ago, I said you're banana. The free, everybody wants him. I mean, I'm sitting here going, Jason Light, and you guys have crushed it in the last few weeks. I love it. Your thoughts?
Well, and how about the deal for Baker, right? Like it's $8 million, but only $4 million guaranteed. So it's an incentive laden deal. And when you put a guy who's already incentivized to make come in and try and regroup and prove who he is, and then you put some financial backing behind that incentive, I think it's a win-win for both sides here, because it's just a 1 year deal. So it's not a huge commitment. You come in and see if you can kind of recapture some of that magic and some of that reasons why he was a number 1 overall pick. And I love the point that you brought up, the mobility. Yeah. One thing you never had with Tom Brady, right? You never had a guy who could escape the pocket and try and create stuff out of nothing sometimes. I mean, it's what's make Patrick Mahomes so great, is his ability to do that. I'm not trying to compare Baker Mayfield to Patrick Mahomes, but he has that ability in him. And, yeah, with everything that's the Bucks are trying to accomplish this year, I think this is a great deal for them. As you mentioned, they don't have a lot of cap space. They had to restructure so many deals just to get under the cap to make this work. And now you're going to tell me that guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are a little bit more excited today than they were 48 hours ago. I think that's part of this too, right? Like, you make sure that some of your top guys understand that, no, we're not trying to tank a season, quote unquote. We actually think we have something here. We've got a good defense. We've got offensive weapons. We still have a lot of ingredients where we can be a competing team, especially in the NFC South, and Baker Mayfield gives them a better chance.
I couldn't agree more. And obviously Evans and Godwin are like, okay, we've played with Kyle Trask. He's been around here for a while, but I agree with you. They have to be saying to themselves, we got a guy that's been in the NFL for 5 years now, has thrown for over 16,000 yards in this league, 102 touchdowns, 64 interceptions. He's got, he's played in this league, and there's just a big difference between that and Kyle Trask. But again, listen, have them battle it out, and that's going to make both players better. But when you look at the situation for Baker and then look at Geno Smith, right, where Dave Canales came from Seattle, Dave was his quarterback coach, and you just can't escape this similarity. You got a guy that wants the second act as a quarterback, just like Geno, and you put him in a quarter, what I think is going to be a very quarterback friendly offense where there's run pass options, which obviously Baker can do, the waggles, the bootlegs, all those mobility things we talked about that you were unable to do with Tom Brady. And again, I'm not besmirching Brady's legacy at all, but this offense was so limited under him last year. He refused to really sit back there and let plays develop. He was getting the ball out quick. Every team knew that, so everybody was compressed at the line of scrimmage. It was harder to get run after the catch on those short passes. It was harder to run the football because everybody was compressed. It was harder to protect because they knew where Brady was going to be and he wasn't going to move out of that spot. It was just really difficult. Not making excuses for Byron Leftwich, but it was really difficult. Now you open up the entire field, the entire playbook, because you have a guy that can move and get the ball downfield, got a strong enough arm to get the ball downfield. It's just this marriage with Dave Canales looks a lot like Geno Smith last year, who became the comeback player of the year. So I think with what the Bucs had to work with, this is as good a marriage as they could possibly have even concocted in their wildest dreams.
And how good did Baker look in the Rams uniform? Right when they needed somebody to come in, they picked him up off the waiver wires, and he jumped right in, and he looked really comfortable right away. I think that is the Baker Mayfield you're probably getting, and not the guy who was, in the middle of some drama there in Cleveland and everything else. I think it's that, what are it, 4 or 5 games, and the Rams were kind of out of it at that point. But he had something to prove. And he went into LA and he proved that he's ready to kind of be a guy again. And again, that's why I just think this makes so much sense from Tampa Bay's perspective, because, especially when you compare the contract that David Carr got in New Orleans to this,
the Saints are locked into Carr and whatever. And I thought he would be a good option for the Buccaneers. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. But, Carr he definitely has a ceiling, right? And I would even say right now that Baker Mayfield's ceiling is above Derek Carr's. And Carr's been good, but he hadn't been great. And at least Baker has more playoff wins than he does. That's for damn sure. So look, is it the greatest thing ever? No, of course not. Would I have liked, to see, the Bucs somehow get a hold of Aaron Rodgers? Sure, for a couple of years, that would have been great. Not in the situation that he's in right now with the cap money. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's not Tom Brady coming in here 3 years ago. It's not that, but you knew the rebuild was coming, and you're going to have to take your medicine. So been able to have, a second round pick in Kyle Trask, who did very, very well in the SEC, and I'm anxious to see what he's got. He could be a guy. You don't know. You just don't know. And they may draft a quarterback. If Hendon Hooker falls into the second or third round, everybody's got a first round grade on him. Go ahead and grab him. I don't care if you and here's the thing, Eric, that's great. They signed Jamel Dean so they don't have to go out and get an elite corner with a first or second round pick. Their offensive line, I think, is just fine right now with the talent it has. You can add, but you don't have to go out and get a tackle because you got guys right now in Hainsey and Gedeke that can do that. And you got Wirfs moving to left side. You don't have to get an inside linebacker because you just signed Levante David for another year. So this gives them flexibility in the draft. If what quarterback they like falls to them, that they can go ahead and make that pick. Guy doesn't have to come in and play this year. Hooker, if the knee's not ready, that's fine. We got Baker Mayfield and we got Kyle Trask, but we got Hendon Hooker sitting in the back that maybe if things don't work out with these two guys, we could go to him next year. He's already here. And we could draft with our first round pick. We could draft receivers. And this is the thing. They didn't have to give up any compensation to get Baker Mayfield, like all these other teams are having to give up compensation. So in terms of the rebuild and what you have going forward, I can argue that this team is as good as any in the NFC South, even with the new quarterbacks that are coming in. And it still has, I think, the best roster in the NFC South. So, man, for rebuilds, this ain't so bad. I can stomach this.
Well, and options, right? Like you just
Yes.
laid out everything that they were able to do to open up this cap space and still keep some of their key guys. Now you have more options on where you can go. You're not locked into something that you feel you have to go out and find because you're comfortable with what you have. So anything that you get is going to be not necessarily a need, but something you want, right? I think there's a difference there in how you approach how you're going to go out and bring in some players and bring in some, some outside, or even how you approach the draft, because we know the NFL draft is you're usually getting players who are ready to step in and have to be ready to step in a lot of ways if they're going to make a team. So now, because of everything that they've been able to pull off in the last couple of weeks, they look a lot better right now than they did, a week or 2 weeks ago when we all thought that it was going to be a very difficult process for the front office to kind of get them where they're at, and they've pulled it off. And I think you have to applaud Jason Light and company for being able to do what they've done, because this is a team that will compete. Not that we think can compete. They will compete.
Yep, that's great. I think they're in a really, really good spot right now. And like I said at the beginning of this rebuild, look at the Eagles template. They've stayed somewhat competitive since they've won the world championship and the Super Bowl. They stayed competitive, mildly competitive, and now last year obviously make it to the Super Bowl. They found their future quarterback, but they kept some pieces like Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, who re-signed with them as well. So you can stay competitive while you get back to that level. The Bucs obviously aren't back at that level yet. Now, if Mayfield were to pop and they hit a couple of big draft picks, you never know. You never know. So we'll see. All right, let's dive a little bit in on tonight's game against the Devils. I think we could both agree Tuesday night's 4-1 win was probably their best road effort of the year. I think it was, and it came at a really good time because I was a little concerned going up against the Devils this week because they're a Carolina type team. They're very tight checking. They won't allow you much. And you know what? The Lightning went out and put one on them, and I love the way they closed out the game as well. Your thoughts on Tuesday and what we'll see tonight?
Well, to me, the big key in that game was the third period, because the Devils are a good third period team. Their goal differential, I think, was plus 30 in the third period alone going into the other night. So they did not allow a team that likes to skate and can create a ton of opportunities off the rush to get that in their game. They didn't have that feel for the puck because you just suffocated them. Puck possession wise, they gave up puck possession to make sure that they played good defense. I thought that the first period was a little shaky at times. There were some turnovers. There were some areas. I mean, they put 2 pucks into just prime scoring areas for the Devils to take advantage of. Andrei Vasilevsky was there to make the saves and not allow things to kind of get away from them. And then what a turning point it was for the goal to be overturned on goalie interference that would have made it 2-0. And then a couple minutes later, Anthony Cirelli again scores shorthanded. Huge turning point in that game. And one of the things that has been the Lightning's kind of bugaboo a little bit during some of this stretch is they would get into some of these games, especially in the last 5 weeks or so. Something would not go their way. They would hit a lull and they can't get out of it. They can't pull themselves out of it. They didn't allow that to happen the other night. The potential was there. If they'd have fallen behind 2-0, I'm curious to see how they would have responded. That overturned goal kind of woke them up a little bit, and they played solid after that. Again, gave up a lot of puck possession. The Devils had the puck quite a bit when you look at the possession numbers. But efficient, created opportunities, I think took advantage of some of New Jersey's defensive question marks that they still have, and goaltending question marks that they still have. But this is still a really good New Jersey team with guys like Jack Hughes, and they bring in Timo Meier. Dawson Mercer is a fantastic young player. I mean, we saw this rise of the Devils coming. I don't know if we saw it coming this fast, but when we watched them last year, fast, aggressive, in your face, willing to take some chances because they got the offensive guys that can make you pay for mistakes. And they added an Andre Palat this year. Dougie Hamilton's been really a good presence for them. He's still got some question marks at his own end, but he's been really good for them. And the question's going to be if the Devils can get some consistent goaltending, they are a team that can compete, even a very stacked Eastern Conference. So very curious to see how game 2 of this 2-game set goes tonight.
Yeah, and that's an interesting juxtaposition as well because of this new scheduling. I guess this is the first year I've really noticed it, where they're doing back-to-backs, sometimes one place and then the next, like the Red Wings did the other night with Boston, I believe it was.
Yep.
The Lightning have done it as well. And it becomes these mini series, and it really helps the teams in terms of travel, right? Here's a tired Lightning team that didn't have to get on a plane and arrive in New York City, at 4:00 in the morning and try to get to bed and play a game maybe in the next 36 hours, which, you've been on those trips and as have I, and they just throw your entire body clock off. I can't even go to the damn coffee shop. These guys are playing 3 hours of, brutal hockey. It's tough to do. So I think this is a good thing that the league is doing. It'll help out the players, help out the quality of the hockey too, I think.
I like it. And, I know Jonathan Toews was a big proponent of these type of things. He's been very vocal over the past couple of years. And during the COVID year, when we saw this, where teams were playing almost exclusively 2 games in a city over a 3-night span, I think it kind of made the league think about it a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not a ton, right? This is the only one the Lightning have like this. And, you have home and homes. Home and homes are not that unusual. We see it a lot with Tampa Bay and Florida. In particular, but to play 2 games in the same city, not only does it save on the wear and tear of the players, it cuts down on some travel costs for teams, right?
Of course.
The Lightning are going to go to New York or New Jersey and play 2 games, and they practiced yesterday, and so there's just one trip up, one flight back. It's not anything like that, so there's some incentive there for the teams to do it as well. Usually, you see this division wise. This is a conference situation, not necessarily a division, but I think it does give a different feel, because it is, in some ways, we heard John Cooper in particular talk about this during that COVID year, said this is like a playoff series because what adjustments are you going to make from game 1 to game 2, especially on special teams and everything like that. That's why I'm curious to see what kind of adjustments both teams make tonight in this game, because we've seen or we've heard a lot about the Devils this year. That's the first time we're seeing them here in late March. So now you got to see them up close and personal. Okay, now what can we do to adjust them? And the fact that the playoffs are just a month away, it's never bad to get in that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see what adjustments are made tonight by the coaches. Do you anticipate anything? And I know, will Stammer be back? What are you hearing on that front as far as his injury goes? Any different lineups changes tonight?
We'll see. I don't think they're skating today because they had a practice yesterday, and the hotel they're at is kind of a bit of a drive to the rink. So a lot of guys didn't even take to the ice on Tuesday. So we won't know for lineups for sure. But in listening to Steven Stamkos yesterday, he did practice.
Okay.
He did admit that maybe he shouldn't have played on Sunday. I think we were all surprised after watching him kind of flex that knee, like, oh boy. And so to see him out there, and he admitted maybe he shouldn't have played. So, the extra couple of days here should help him get back to where if he felt good enough to play on Sunday, that's obviously a really good sign. So just take a day off and rest. So it sounds like he'll be back in. The question's going to be, what do they do on defense, right? Because they're still carrying the 8. Zach Bogosian's now sat out a couple of games. I don't think it's injury related. I think they're just going to kind of save some of the wear and tear on his body a little bit. And I think they want to get a good look at Darren Radish here. Darren Radish has had a fantastic year for Syracuse in the American Hockey League. He's top 15 in overall scoring in the American League. He was an all-star. So there's a lot to like about the potential of Darren Radish. And you're never going to know what kind of a player you have if you don't give him some opportunity to play. So I think that's a little bit of what's going on here as well, as he kind of gets in some lineups, get some home games, get some road games, see how he adjusts and see if he's somebody who could be a little bit of a long-term solution here. The goaltending is going to be the really interesting one. Obviously, I'm pretty sure Andrei Vasilevsky goes again tonight. We'll find out for sure, probably not till warmups, but does Does New Jersey go back to Vitek Vanacek, who, he let in a couple of goals that maybe you'd like your goalie to save? Like good shots and wide open opportunities, especially the Hagel and Killorn goals in particular. But, I mean, you've got New Jersey again on Sunday. So 3 of 4 games against the Devils, with the game on Saturday against Montreal squeezed in there. Do you let Vasilevsky play 3 straight games against New Jersey, or does Elliott get the one on Sunday and Vazzy starts on Saturday? So the goaltending is always interesting to watch in these situations too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vazzy's win the other night, I think I heard you on one of the shows maybe say that was his first win in 5-6 games?
Yeah. Well, it's as the team has struggled. For sure. Also, his 30th win of the year. One of 11 goalies in NHL history to have 6 consecutive 30 or more win seasons.
Wow. Yeah, his numbers by the time he gets done are going to be off the charts Hall of Fame numbers. I think his resume is already pretty solidified in that degree. And speaking of Hall of Fame, we got a big weekend coming up with the Lightning, with the alumni and the Hall of Fame going in. So we're definitely going to tap into Erik during this show as far as the history goes, as we did yesterday with Paul Stewart and the Bucks. We're going to go back the last 20, 25 years that both of us have been covering this team, and you've got some great stories. I know I've got a few myself. You and I have been we were on the road for the whole 04 thing together when we were working over at Media General. So we'll dip back into some of those archives. So Lightning fans, sit back and enjoy. We're going to have some fun with the show tonight and bring back some of the best memories that this team has had over its first 30 years. All right, we'll take a quick break. We come back on the other side. Kevin Weiss from Locked On Rays is going to join us. We haven't talked a lot of Rays this spring, so we're going to jump into that. A lot of the guys are killing it at the World Baseball Classic, so we'll get that as well. Stay with us. Erik Erlendsson will be back with us. Kevin Weiss will join us as well. Back at 3. Hey guys, JP here for the Gold and Diamond Source. There is no better place to shop for jewelry than the Gold and Diamond Source. We know that. They are the family jewelers, and they will treat you like family. It's always a fun experience. Just head on over there. You will not find a better selection anywhere in the world. It's a jewelry super center. They've got $4,000 crunches in just 15 minutes. Just get in touch with them at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. Chris Lugo and the team over there will set you up on TrueBody and get amazing results. Non-invasive with comfortable and little to no pain and zero downtime. You can isolate and target those areas that you want to improve and treat multiple areas simultaneously. It's an amazing machine, so check it out at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. Well, Fitz the mortgage guy did it again. A listener heard his ad, was going to another big bank, but called Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services of Tampa, and Fitz saved him $618 on his monthly payment. Are you kidding me? Folks, that's big money. Rates are going up, they're going down, they're going all over the Scott will shop your loan and save you lender fees and get the best rates. Email him, scott@amstampa.com, or call 813-294-7595. That's Fitz, the mortgage guy. Lots of stuff going on right now, and these rates are going all over the place. You need somebody knowledgeable in the market that will work hard for you and get you the best deal. That's my man, Scott. He's done 3 loans for me, done thousands of loans for local folks here, works with a lot of the coaches and players in the area. He's the guy. 813-294-7595, or go to scott@amstampa.com. Insurance coverage can be confusing and expensive. I mean, where do you start? Which companies can you count on to pay out fast and fair? Well, call the great folks at Italiano Insurance. It's a family-owned business. Jeff and Nat Italiano are carrying on the 60-year-plus tradition of giving amazing customer service and giving back to the community through their annual backpack drive for needy students and their support of the local pediatric cancer patients. But it's the customer service that sets them apart. They can shop all your insurance needs and save you big-time money. Don't hop on the internet and waste time looking at some bogus reviews. Talk to knowledgeable agents and not some voice-generated robot. These are confusing times for homeowners, and Italiano's team of experienced professionals can provide the right coverage for every situation: home, auto, business, life. It's Italiano for all the pieces of your life. Call 813-877-7799 or go to italianoinsurance.com.
Let's go. Right now, back to the show. JP on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show, brought to you by the great folks at the Golden Diamond Source, Italiano Insurance, Bay Area Modern Medical Center, and the Jeeves Law Group, JEEVES lawgroup.com. All right, I want to welcome in our friend Kevin Weiss from Locked On Rays. Erik Erlendsson also co-hosting with us this morning. What's up, Kevin? How are you?
Doing well, JP. Getting closer to the start of the regular season, which obviously is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, how many days we are we out now? We're like 12, 13 days. Wow. Until they
day for the Rays is March 30th, and today's March 16th, so just about 2 weeks.
All right, well, we haven't talked to you in a while, and we haven't really dug into what's going on with the Rays this spring. We've been so busy with Bucks and Lightning, of course. And other great stuff going on. But, silently, I think the Rays are having a nice spring because the offense has been popping. We've seen home runs from a lot of different sources. How would you judge how spring has gone so far, the Glasnow injury notwithstanding?
Yeah, no, it's great that the Rays are hitting the ball, and the run differential is appealing. But, again, at the end of the day, it is spring training. The stats don't matter. The games don't count. It's a lot different to be productive in March than it is in April, May, June, July, August, and September. So I take the stats with a little grain of salt, although it is, you'd rather see a guy being successful rather than unsuccessful at the plate. But we also have to remember a lot of these pitchers are just, trying to work out the kinks and trying to focus on a particular pitch or repertoire, just, trying to build up. And some of the guys that have already made the roster, they're just, waiting to get out of the first, second inning so they can go to the closest brewery or bar and enjoy the rest of the day. So I don't take too much stock into the statistic end of things, but I can just tell you big picture here, 30,000-foot view is that the Rays are going to need these young players to step up because they didn't go out and get Jose Abreu or Michael Brantley or Brandon Belt or some other veteran presence, veteran middle of the order bat. So, Josh Lowe better keep it up. Luke Raley better keep it up. Like that's kind of the basic answer for the Rays during the regular season, I would think.
Erik, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I got a question, Kevin. It's been a different spring training, obviously, for the Rays with the damage to their complex down in Port Charlotte. Like, is there an advantage or a disadvantage because they're at the Trop for the most part? I know they started out at Disney out in Orlando, but to be at the Trop, where you're going to be the whole season, don't you want some newness, or is this maybe an advantage because you're on home turf, so to speak?
Did we lose Kevin? Kevin, could you hear Erik?
Yeah, I'm here, JP. I can't hear Erik for some reason when he was asking a question. It was just blank. I'm sorry.
What he's asking is about the Trop. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that they're playing there in terms of, when the regular season starts? There's no newness there at all. They're not going anywhere new. But I guess some of the new guys like Zach Eflin are getting used to the mound and the surroundings of Tropicana Field.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it does have some inherent benefits. I mean, you can make the jokes about, hey, get used to not having as much attendance. You're going to have to do the spring training attendance during the regular season. But outside of, being the travel coordinator and having to deal with that mess between the minor leaguers and the leaguers and getting everything situated there, I think that it is very important for these new players and these young players to get comfortable with the Trop surroundings, whether it's a pitcher or a position player. A lot of these young position players, they've never experienced or don't have much experience with the catwalk and the lighting and the turf and how the field plays, especially with the new rules changes and just what you can get away with and maybe how the ball bounces and knowing where you are. So I think having an extra, dozen plus games in an environment you're going to be in for the year, I think does have an added advantage. I don't know if I can measure that or weigh that, but it's got to help to some extent, just that comfortability factor and kind of finding out, okay, this is how I need to play the ball when it's up in the air, or this is, I need to get it my certain spot on a particular ground ball or line drive or ball that's coming my way. So I think it is valuable from that perspective because, I mean, obviously the field, at spring training is much different than the Tropicana field confines, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Weiss joining us, Locked On Rays. I didn't see the game, but I think I saw Rosarena had 5 RBI for Mexico last night, and he's tearing up the World Baseball Classic. That's got to be good news. And I think I saw Jason Adam last night come in and strike out the side for USA against Colombia in a big spot. Talk a little bit about the Rays in the WBC.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Randy, and it's great to see what he's doing. I mean, this guy obviously clearly loves the bright lights and the big stage. I wonder at some point he definitely won't be Rays his entire career. So when he goes off to Boston, New York, or Chicago or LA, I think where some players they sort of drown and struggle, in front of 45,000 fans and the media pressure and the fan pressure, I feel like that is something that Randy can really embrace and thrive upon. And you could almost make an argument that the deadness of the Trop and the humdrum of some of those games maybe, takes the sails out of you and it makes you want to not really get up in the morning, if you will. But Randy is a guy that, you hope he keeps it up for Team Mexico and stays healthy. That's the big thing for all these guys in the WBC. We hear and saw about what happened to Edwin Diaz. I mean, that's just an absolute nightmare for any organization. But I think it's really good for these players to go out because the competition is much more intense and enhanced in the World Baseball Classic compared to spring training. So I would imagine that these guys that are playing in these competitive ball games that they should be, raring and ready to go by March 30th. And, Randy is a guy that absolutely has to continue to perform well and step up. And, as far as the bat goes, I mean, the numbers at the end of the day are very, very impressive. The other impressive part is he's available game in and game out. He played 153 games last year, 141 in 2021. We can't say that about many Rays position players with all the injuries that has gone on. But, of course, you would like to see some more consistency from him from month to month. Like, you don't want him to have, hey, I've got a 900 OPS in April and then a 600 OPS in May. There was a little bit of that with Randy. So I think more consistency, and there's been reports that he's actually delving into the scouting end of things, and he wants to know what pitchers' repertoires are instead of just going in there blind. He actually wants to have some sort of process, and he wants to be prepared and more cerebral when he's at the plate. And that also has to translate to the base pass because the running into outs issue it's not now the bigger bases, maybe that has some sort of impact, but the Rays, I know there is a benefit to, being aggressive and having to keep the opposition 15, 20 outs a season. I mean, he's basically setting records over here. I mean, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he might run himself out of town because of, just if you're not listening to your coaches. I don't know what the exact directive is with Randy, but he's got to, for lack of a better term, cool the brakes a little bit on that, or spots in a little bit better fashion, because I don't think this is a team that, I know you have to force the issue at times, but you can't be stupid about it either.
Exactly.
So that is going to be something that I watch for this season. Yeah, it's great he had a 20, 30, 40 season, but you take the 32 stolen bases, but you don't want to take as many caught stealings as he had either. So that's going to be something to watch as well this year.
All right, Eric, you want to try again?
Yeah, we'll see. Kevin, what do we make of Randy shagging fly balls and cowboy boots?
He said, what do you make of Randy shagging fly balls and cowboy boots?
Hey, I'm all for it. Hey, anything, quite frankly, anything that, brings some attention and social media factor and pizzazz and charisma to the game of baseball, I'm all for it. I mean, I don't know if he rolls an ankle, I might be eating those words, but, I deal with a high ankle sprain or anything of that nature, a foot spur, bone spur, whatever it may be. But, things like that, that's, you got to find a way to market yourself and promote yourself. And at the end of the day, promote your product and promote the game. And if you're, someone in baseball, if you're the Rays, you have to enjoy that because at the end of the day, people are talking about it. And that's what you want. There's no such thing as bad PR. So at least, you're getting some sort of attention in some way. And I think that's good attention at the end of the day.
Kevin Weiss joining us here. Kevin, I know we haven't heard much about the incident between Yandy and Rosarena last year in terms of the mainstream media so much, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know what your take is on it. All I know is after that happened, the Rays, I think, won 2 games in about 3 weeks, and their offense was horrible because Yandy wasn't in the lineup for about 2 weeks. So whatever that altercation was, and I don't believe it was just a shouting match, by the way, it tanked the team. There's no question about it. Something happened there. What's your view on that whole thing? What information have you gleaned from that? And I honestly was kind of shocked that one of those guys wasn't moved out. And can they coexist in the same locker room?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly totally forgot about that, and I'm glad you brought up that stat because that is kind of staggering how inept that the team was over the next couple weeks. I mean, if the Rays have doubled down, Diaz with that contract.
Yeah.
For years. So who's the last man standing? I had to guess if I had, a prop bet to put on it, I would say Yandy Diaz just because, you can't, I know everybody wants more power and pop from him. You'd love to see 20, 22, 25 bombs, but there are not many guys on this planet that can produce a 400 on base percentage at the big league level and walk more than they strike out, walk significantly more than they strike out. So, and again, if Randy, for all the dynamic athletic talent that he has and the excitement that he brings, if you're not listening to your coaches, if you're making mistakes that ultimately hurt the ball club, I don't care what your stats are at the end of the year. Yeah, if your stat line looks great, that's fine, but it goes much more into that. And the Rays are very cognizant and very aware of clubhouse dynamics and making sure that players get along and are loose and friendly and have a good time for 162 and hopefully a deep playoff run. So, hopefully these guys are professional, they're adult, and that they can move on from a situation like this. I know that Yandy, at least on the Spanish side of view, he's kind of, they're trying to mold him or force him to that Kevin Kiermaier leadership role, if you will. So maybe, this contract extension and that, status, whether earned or given, maybe puts Randy a little bit more in his place. I'd love to hear what some of the rumors and reports are regarding that altercation. I don't know if it was about, who could bench more or something like that, but so I would hope that they've moved on by this point. I mean, it certainly isn't the first player-to-player we've encountered, and it won't be the last. I mean, B.J. Upton, Evan Longoria, Pat Burrell, Carl Crawford. I mean, those are just 2 examples right there. If you want to be a winning ball club and get somewhere, you gotta work through it and move on and be men and be adults about it.
Absolutely. Eric, any more from you on baseball here?
Yeah, well, hey, the Red Sox had 23 players, 23 cabs back in the day, right? So that was a lot of players who didn't get along. Yeah, I'm curious Kevin's thoughts on this potential this pitching staff. Obviously, with no Tyler Glass and all that, that's a big blow to the rotation. But Eflin coming in and Rasmussen, can he continue? I mean, what's the big potential of this staff?
If you could hear that, Kevin, it was about the starting staff with Glass now down for the first 2 months. Can they withstand that and the rest of the season?
Yeah, that's a good question. And sorry, we're kind of playing, past the cone or the can to hear each other. But yeah, I think they should be able to weather the storm and kind of be creative with that starting staff. I mean, at the end of the day, you hope that Glasnow's only missing 4 to 5 starts. And, larger question is, even when he returns, is he going to be healthy for a full season? I mean, Tyler Glasnow's never thrown more than, 110, 111 innings. I've kind of made the comp or the comparison. He's almost the Kevin Kiermaier of the pitching staff. I mean,
yes,
you need to see him on the field. But I think that, they'll I know he's kind of been lost in the wind, but Yanni Chirinos has a lot of talent and has a lot of ability. Sure, he can't replicate what Glasnow does necessarily, but when he stays healthy and assuming that he's back to his, 2018, 2019, 2020 form, I mean, Chirinos is a, 3.5 starter. So I think that should be enough to hold the fort. And then if you need to bring in some reserves from that, you can, do the opener. You can do a bullpen day. You can maybe give Luis Patino a shot. But I would think, I mean, my best guess would be you throw in Yanni Chirinos as the next man up. And then I'm sure at some point, maybe over the course of mid-year or so, Taj Bradley might be ready for the big stage. So I think, this is about as good and strong 1 through 5. Glasnow notwithstanding, that you can have if you're the Rays.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this pitching staff is going to be obviously a strength of this team, and if they can get any offense at all, and hopefully guys can stay healthy, they may have a little pitching surplus at the deadline that they could deal and get that big bopper and finally make some noise in the playoffs. Great stuff, Kevin. Tell the folks how they can get your podcast, Locked On Rays.
Yeah, we're on YouTube at Locked On Rays and all other podcasting platforms. And JP, just one more quick point. That's great that you brought that up, where you can maybe package an arm and maybe some of those infielders. I mean, the Rays have like a dozen infielders on their 40 man. So you could package something up for more of that opera if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's what they wanted, that left-handed bat, and I think it's a good strategy, really. If you couldn't get the deal that you wanted in the offseason, wait till teams are really, really desperate for some of your pitching, and what your needs specifically are. I mean, if Brandon Lau and Josh Lowe are having great years, you don't necessarily have to go out and make a big deal and give up a lot of prospects. So see what you got, see how it goes, and then you're in a much better informed position. And you know what your resources are, and maybe you might be able to just get something a little bit better because the schedule's a little soft early anyway. So you should definitely be with this pitching staff in it at the deadline, and they'll be buyers and be in a really good, strong position and dealing from strength, and that's where you want to be. All right, Kevin, good stuff, my man. We'll check in with you from time to time this year. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks again, and have a good one, guys.
Thanks, appreciate it. That's Kevin Weiss right there. And Erik, I got to get your take on. I know you're a big baseball fan as well, on the stadium situation. I don't know how much you follow that, but where you would like to see it. I think you've seen the growth of hockey in downtown Tampa.
Yeah,
and probably a location issue for this baseball team as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I live in Eastern Hillsborough County, right? So I'm not quite Plant City, but I'm out that way. I mean, it is a long haul for me to go out to a game. And, I like going to the park. I do. I haven't gone much because I just think, I know it sounds like a sad excuse, but I mean, it's an hour drive, in good traffic to get over there. And it's not as bad coming back because it's, 10:30 at night. But I mean, the traffic is a deterrent. I mean, just driving to Amalie Arena for me, when I go there for games it can be a process to get there. It might take me 30 minutes, which should only take me, 20 minutes tops to get to Amalie. So I think that, a more centralized location would be beneficial. It's, I know, talking to a lot of people who live down in Sarasota and that area who like to go to a lot of games. I mean, they just jump over the Sunshine Skyway and, they're pretty much right there. I know that factors into it, but you get Lakeland and especially Pasco County and,
Right.
especially Eastern Pasco County. It's a haul to get to the Trop. I think somewhere more centralized where it's easier, both I-4 and 75 and 275, I think is probably an ideal sort of situation. I don't know if that's Ybor City. I don't know if that's the fairgrounds area, whatever it happens to be, downtown, whatever. I've always felt that closer to Hillsborough County, where a majority of the population base is based, I think would be more beneficial in the long run for the Rays.
Yeah, and I think with in a market that's big in terms of just population and getting bigger exponentially, and that growth is not happening to a large degree in St. Petersburg because there's no land. They cannot expand. It's landlocked. I mean, it's surrounded by water. Obviously, so all the growth is happening east of Tampa, obviously, and it's a lot of growth. And I drive I-4 all the time going over to Orlando, and within five
cool.
years, it's going to be one big city. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. It almost already is. There's really very little vacant land, and and when you get off of I-4 and go back into some of those areas, it's just subdivision after subdivision after subdivision, and it's not going to stop.
And apartment complex after apartment complex after apartment going up.
Yeah, and these, when you can put a baseball field, a baseball stadium within 30 minutes of those people, 45 minutes, and when Brightline comes in, people can just jump on the train down I-4 and don't have to worry about the traffic anymore. And that Brightline is going to come in right down there next to the baseball stadium, wherever they build it in that downtown area. So, I mean, it's a freaking no-brainer in terms of location. But something else you could talk to, because you've been through, and we'll get into this. In fact, you know what? I'll tease this because we'll take a break. Ownership. The three most important things in sports are ownership, and ownership, because everything stems from that. You've seen it in no better contrast from crappy ownership to maybe the best owner in sports in Jeffrey Vinnick, and how that can affect a franchise, a fan base, and everything else. So we'll hit that when we come back vis-a-vis the Rays ownership. We'll hit that when we come back, and we'll talk with Erik, and we'll get into the history of this team as well, as the alumni weekend is coming up, the Hall of Fame weekend. So lots to get to with Erik Erlendsson, Lightning Insider. Stay with us. The boys are back. The PGA Tour's Valspar Championship returns March 16th to the 19th with 4 days of incredible golf, plus a host of activities that make it Tampa Bay's hottest spring sports ticket. There is more to the Valspar than just great golf. It's the Hooters Owl's Nest, the Snake Pit Club, accessible by premium tickets, and other great venues throughout the course for those with ground tickets. And new in 2023 is the Rooftop, a new prestigious venue at the 18th green with music, food, and fun. Plus, you never know who you're going to see at the Rooftop. Tickets are on sale now at ValsparChampionship.com for all tournament days, both grounds tickets and premium ticket options. You don't want to miss the 2023 Valspar Championship. Insurance coverage can be confusing and expensive. I mean, where do you start? Which companies can you count on to pay out fast and fair? Well, call the great folks at Italiano Insurance. It's a family-owned business. Jeff and Nat Italiano are carrying on the 60-year-plus tradition of giving amazing customer service and giving back to the community through their annual backpack drive for needy students and their support of the local pediatric cancer patients. But it's the customer service that sets them apart. They can shop all your insurance needs and save you big-time money. Don't hop on the internet and waste time looking at some bogus reviews. Talk to knowledgeable agents and not some voice-generated robot. These are confusing times for homeowners, and Italiano's team of experienced professionals can provide the right coverage for every situation: home, auto, business, life. It's Italiano for all the pieces of your life. Call 813-877-7799 or go to ItalianoInsurance.com. Well, Fitz the mortgage guy did it again. A listener heard his ad, was going to another big bank, but called Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services of Tampa, and Fitz saved him $618 on his monthly payment. Are you kidding me? Folks, that's big money. Rates going up, down, all over the place. And save your fee, get the email him at AMS.com. Call 813-294-7595. That's Fitz, the mortgage guy. Lots of stuff going on right now, and these rates are going all over the place. You need somebody knowledgeable in the market that will work hard for you and get you the best deal. That's my man, Scott. He's done 3 loans for me, done thousands of loans for local folks here, works with a lot of the coaches and players in the area. He's the guy. 813-294-7595 or go to scott at amstampa.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's rock.
This is FanStream Sports with JP.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show. Oh my gosh, that was, I got to tell you, Eric, that was a first for me right there. I, not only did we, during the break, I made a cup of coffee, got some water to hydrate as well, and took a Wiz Khalifa all at the same time. And I got back like literally with about 10 seconds to go. So that just made my day. How about that?
That's the ultimate in multitasking, JP.
Well, I think everything's still working. All right, so we're and we have to mention Nick. I mean, because they're super there. Nick Geddes is off on his honeymoon. Got married last week. You used to coach him in soccer.
Yeah.
I know you want to wish him a happy marriage and everything else.
Absolutely. And boy, it just makes you feel older and older all the time. That he's to coach him. He's like 13 years old. Now he's married. It's just, oh man, time does go fly. But no, that's great. I heard you there with Brian after on the last call there on Sunday talking about it. So yeah, congratulations, Nick. That's awesome. Best of luck to you and everything you do, because you've earned it and you deserve it.
All right. So based on his soccer ability and his temperament, okay, how would you predict him as a husband?
Oh, wow. I feel like you really put me on the spot there.
So listen, we ask for nothing but honesty on this show. We don't BS. This is not corporate media. Let's go. You got to be. If you're a coach, you saw the good and the bad. What are his strengths here?
I mean, I don't know Nick as well as an adult as I knew him as a teenager and an early teenager. But again, going back to that season in soccer, it was not the easiest. It was a lot of dysfunction going on. Me and his mom actually were co-managing the team at the time. We had no idea what we were doing. They brought in a coach. Coach Wen was his name. I think he actually did some work for the Rowdies back then in their development system. It was a tough year. And a lot of those kids on that team, I'll tell you what, they didn't fracture. They didn't tear apart, which can easily happen, especially at that level of youth soccer. I think that's a testament to all those kids are, right? They just wanted to play, and they went out and they had a good time. We didn't win a lot of games, but they had a really good time. And if that's any indication that you can handle a situation like that, even as a teenager, I think that's a really good life lesson that a lot of those kids learned that year for soccer.
Isn't it funny? I was just having this conversation with some parents. We were talking about the value of youth sports, and I grew up in sports. I come from a fractured home, a broken home. My dad left when I was probably about 10 years old, and sports was my life. Like my mom was working all the time, and I came home every day after school. Oh, I didn't come home. I went to a practice every single day because I played football, basketball, and baseball. I just filled my life with nothing but sports, and you learn so many great lessons. Teamwork, integrity. Perseverance, hard work, all these things that I value in life. And I think values that will help you grow as a human being. And that's what youth sports teach you. Now, I'm here to say it's been bastardized in a lot of different ways, youth sports. But I still think in general, the experience is worth it. And I think all kids, even if whether they're athletic or not, should endeavor to be in youth sports. What do you think?
And they should play multiples.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
Especially the good athletes.
Yes.
Right? Like the good athletes. I mean, if Bobby Orr tells you that, hey, I benefited in my hockey career because I played lacrosse.
Yep.
I mean, that's the best endorsement you can possibly have about being involved in multiple sports. Go out and learn something new. Who knows? Maybe you might end up actually liking it. And if you don't, you're still going to get some benefit out of it. And if you are an athlete, you're going to get some cross training and understand that there are different parts of your body that you have to use in different sports. And more importantly, different parts of your mind that you have to use in different sports. It sometimes it can bring you out of a comfort zone. Sometimes in life, we get too much in our comfort zones. And I think that being involved in sports can help break us out of that. And I think it's extremely beneficial in a lot of ways. It teaches you a team environment. It teaches you that sometimes you can't be an individual in a team environment. It teaches leadership skills. Leaders emerge on sports teams in a lot of ways, and those are benefits that can help you on in life too. And I can tell you this too, JP. I've recently started officiating soccer games, so I'm a certified soccer ref. I've been doing some youth games and some high school games and some middle school games and everything else. And you see a lot of different varieties of everything I just said in that aspect. And I think that it can also teach you how to treat other people, right? Because it's so easy. And this is a perspective that I've gained the last year since doing this. It's so easy to just yell at an official, right?
Yeah.
It's just easy, and it's almost too easy. Yeah. And I haven't encountered a bad one yet. I've been fortunate in that aspect. I've had a couple coaches not agree with my calls or, something I said or whatever. And I've learned to adapt along those ways too. But,
Right.
Look, I had to red card a kid, U13 player, a U13 player, because he didn't like a call that I made. So he comes walking by and goes, "Are you effing serious, ref?" At 13.
Yeah.
Right. So there's another life lesson. You can't treat people that way without some form of potential, retribution, not retribution, that's a bad word, but consequences of your actions. So even that aspect of it, you have to, there are different life lessons involved in so many different levels of youth sports.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I learned, and something that we don't do a lot today, it seems like everybody makes the team, right? There aren't a lot of cuts that it's just nobody wants any feelings hurt, right? Which I think is terrible. I mean, kids do not learn
coping skills.
Yeah, you got to learn from adversity, man. You've got that. Kids need adversity, and at a young age, or the world is full of it. I'm here to tell you. And once you get out into the world, if you have not prepared your kids for the adversity they're going to face, you're failing them. You're failing them on so many levels. And so I think it's when things happen like that to my son or my daughter in sports, and it was tough for them, and I I felt for them certainly, but I secretly welcomed it. I was like, okay, good. And even, just in terms of life, I told them, and your parents get divorced. These things are going to happen. There's adversity. It's how you handle it through your life that is going to determine the quality of your life. So let's work on figuring out how we're going to get through this and how we're going to get and make it a positive in your life. Like I'm telling them, you get 2 Christmases, you get 2 or 4 summer vacations for them. I mean, the whole time they were like, "Dad, this is you." I mean, leaving one vacation and going to the next every summer. It's like nonstop. Yeah. I said, "See, I told you." So it can be so beneficial for kids, and that's why I tell coaches and I tell other parents, when adversity strikes in these things, it's not a time to quit. It's not a time to welcome it. Invite it in. Teach them how to cope with it.
Have you seen the movie Inside Out, the Pixar movie?
I have not.
Okay, so just the basic premise of it is that all the emotions, anger, fear, disgust, joy, sadness, are these characters inside this 13-year-old girl's head who plays hockey. And not to get too deep into the storyline, but at the end of the day, the life lesson there is that Joy is the happy character, right? Like, she's trying to take over everything, and I don't want Riley to feel sadness. I don't want her to feel sadness. And at the end of the day, the ultimate story is that sadness can be a core memory that creates who you are because you've learned how to deal with it. And it's exactly like that. It's on a lot of levels. That movie is about a huge life lesson because it does involve a preteen or a young teenage girl involved in sports. She's actually a hockey player in that movie. So it's all about being able to understand that there are certain elements that are going to happen in your life that they're going to suck when you go through them.
Yeah.
But if you handle it the right way and you deal with it the right way, you're going to come out stronger on the other side.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. This country needs a lot of that because we got a lot of spoiled brats running around. It's just really, 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 really alarming. But We won't go down that rabbit hole. Glad we got into that discussion.
So we brought pop culture into it.
Exactly. I was going to ask you about in terms of ownership, and you've seen this, and we could talk about some of the great owners we've had here. Art Williams, I had such a warm space in my heart for Art Williams because he was
Saved the franchise.
he did. It's such a lovable goofball. But let's talk a little bit about the history of this franchise in terms of ownership and how we got to Mr. Vinnick and how that just became, how the Lightning became what was once a joke franchise, almost an extinct franchise, to the best sports franchise in North America, according to ESPN and me and you.
Yeah, it is amazing to think of the journey. You go back to even when the franchise was founded with Phil and the Kokosai Green, and are they part of the Yakuza and everything else, and all that. I mean, that Sports Illustrated story that came out. You go on to the Davidson Group, or actually you go to Art Williams after that, who again, he saved the franchise. He was kind of a goofy character. There's no doubt. The whole "Are you a dud or are you a stud?" They had that shirt on the wall in the bar there for a long time as well. But he paid off all the debt. He was in over his head as an owner, but he came in, paid off the debt, and saved the franchise because the Davidson Group, who were kind of a model of consistency for a while, they actually looked at it when it was up for sale the first time. They saw the debt and they said, you know what? Yeah, we don't want anything to do with that. But once the debt was paid off, they came in a year later and said, okay, we'll buy it now. Right. So then you go from the Davidson Group, and then, Mr. Davidson, and his family, he was, up there in age at the time he bought the franchise. He moves on, so they sell it. And you go from that to Orrin Koulis and Len Barry, which was, the nickname, the Cowboys, and everything else that they did because they were kind of out there just, shooting from the hip and everything they wanted to bring in, and I'll say this about that group. Len Barry was a huckster in a lot of ways.
Yes.
He, if you go into his dealings with, what was it, the Bear Mountain, I think it is out in British Columbia.
Big real estate venture that failed.
Yeah. And he, there was talks of him going to jail and everything else. And, I feel bad for Orrin Koulis in this situation because I always felt that Orrin's passion and heart were in the right place. He got taken advantage of by Doug McLean and his partner, who wrote up a deal that basically were going to use Orrin as an ATM machine, for lack of a better term. So I think Orrin's heart was always in the right place and his passion was always there. He just kind of got involved with the wrong people. So he kind of gets lumped in here a little bit. And then you turn all that into Jeff Vinnick. I mean, boy, about a year into his ownership, I had somebody within the organization say, we need to get that guy a Pope Mobile because you don't want to believe that he's real. And then you realize that everything he says and does is genuine.
Yeah.
The great Bill Wickett used to say he's the real deal. He is as genuine as they come because everything he says, he backs it up, right? Like the whole community hero thing. And a couple of times he's given every employee on the payroll, $75 or $100, go out and give it to your charity. This is a bonus, but I want you to give it a charity, give back to the community. And then, the world class, everything is world class with Jeff Vinnick, everything they do. And he's delivered, right? He said he wanted to bring a championship to this franchise, and he's not brought one, he's brought two, came very close to three. And the window is still open for more championships with this core group of players. And just the consistency that he's brought. And he lives by, I think, the model that so many other owners in sports should live by. Bring in people, the right people, hire them, let them do their job, and then step back.
Yes. And that community hero thing has just, I think, from a grassroots standpoint, has made more Lightning fans and lifelong Lightning fans than any PR move I've ever seen in my life. And he didn't do it for PR. Well, of course he did. I mean, that's not the main driving force.
Comes from the heart.
Exactly. He recognized that if he got involved in the community, if he moved himself down here, moved his family down here, moved his business down here. I mean, I was in Atlanta for a couple of years working for the Falcons, and he is the Arthur Blank of Tampa. And he is driven in now Water Street. Look at the mark that he's left on downtown Tampa with Water Street, and continues to pour into the community. When you compare and contrast that with what has happened with the Rays, you have an owner over there that's holding up development in two cities, in St. Petersburg and Tampa, just to make his own dollar, has never been fan friendly, has given the finger to the fans, time money on the product, takes the money for himself. I mean, all of this stuff is documented in the lawsuit that's partners or share and fraud soon. And it's just this contrast. And the Rays always want to go, oh, woe is me, nobody shows up at the game. I mean, I'm here to tell you, I've lived in this market for a long time, and that matters. There's so many people out there that will invest in the Lightning heavily because they've spent a lot of money on playoff tickets these past few years, and gladly invest in the Lightning because they know the owner has their back. That will constantly go to, give them things, season ticket. I'm a season ticket member myself, and you're constantly getting emails. Come do this, come do that, come do this. Join us for this, join us for that. I mean, you really are part of a family, and you don't get that sense over there at the Rays at all. And it just goes to show you what a difference. I mean, think about it. Hockey in Tampa Bay routinely draws 20,000 people on a Tuesday night. And baseball, which every kid grew up playing here, though 40, 50, and 60-year-olds did. And younger kids certainly are growing up playing hockey now, but that's because of the Lightning. It's because of Jeff Finnick and their grassroots movements and how they've gotten out into the community, gotten into every school, and gotten a hockey stick in almost every kid's hand. I mean, it's amazing template that you could use, anybody could use to take over a city, and nobody's done it like Jeff Finnick and the Lightning. It's an amazing success story.
It is, and for a guy who's from Boston and had some ownership stake in the Red Sox to move down here into a community that he wasn't necessarily familiar with, other than kind of looking at things from the outside, and to turn the franchise. This is the greatest, I think, compliment you can talk about with what Vinnick has done with the team. He's transcended the sports scene, right? Like people know who Jeff Finnick is, and not just because he's the owner of the Lightning. They know he owns the Lightning, but he's the guy who does this community hero stuff. He is the guy who helped redevelop, that entire area around the Channel side and everything like that. And the way he treats people. And, it's not easy to do in today's age, to be in a position that the Vinnicks are in, him and his wife, Penny, obviously the driving force behind the community hero project, to take a sports franchise and so mold them into the community. It's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes it's just based on the wins and losses, and they help. There's no doubt. You win a championship, it helps, but it's more than just that. And that's what, this ownership group with, and they've got some investors now too, right? They sold a portion of the team a couple years ago to outside investors. So, but he's still the voice, the face, and everything that runs this organization. And like I said, the greatest thing was when that employee told me we need to get him a Pope Mobile because we can't afford to lose him.
Absolutely. 100%. Erik Erlendsson, by the way, Lightning Insider, joining us here. Talk some Lightning. Well, let's get back into this franchise and this team right now, because I want to kind of dig into where they're headed. As we mentioned, 12 games left. They're most likely going to play Toronto. I think we would still like to see some growth and a little bit more assimilation for Mike, for Eyssimont and Tanner Jeannot. What would you like to see in the final regular season games to let you know that they're ready for the playoffs?
I'd like to see Eyssimont first and foremost get on the scoreboard. He's been so active around the net. I mean, that first home game he played against Philly had 10 shot attempts, and he's just been everywhere all over the ice. He's made a really good first impression. He deserves to get something on the scoreboard for this team to kind of put him in that column. I think I'd like to see Jeannot make more of an impact, obviously on the scoreboard. For a guy who scored 24 last year and is stuck on 5 this year, that's a huge drop off in production. But I'd also like to see him maybe on a more consistent basis use that physical play to the team's advantage, right? Like these lulls in games that they've been kind of prone to. Sometimes you can wake the team up. And look, I'm not saying a dirty hit, but go out and, just use that body. I thought he tried to in that one game in Buffalo, right? Like he put Dylan Cousins into his own bench, and then of course, obviously the fight with Riley Stillman that kind of everybody around the NHL caught notice of that one. So you saw that impact there, but I think we want to see him use more of that physical play on a consistent basis, because it can be a situation where a team stands up a little bit taller on the bench when a play like that happens. We know he's got their back, and I don't think you're going to see too many people want to fight Tanner Jeannot probably at this point in his career because of what he's already shown he's capable of doing. I mean, JP, he's a big man. The first time he came in and talked to us after the trade, you just saw the upper body strength in him.
Yeah.
Man, I can understand why guys don't want anything to do with him if they can avoid it. And we saw that against Philly, right? Because Brandon Hagel delivered a hit, and a couple of the Flyers started to skate in his direction. Tanner Jeannot took 2 strides, and everybody went, nope, I want no part of that. And off they went, and nothing came of it after that. So you see that impact of him there. But, his forechecking is as advertised. He's got speed as advertised. We've seen some of the physical presence. Maybe I just want to see that a little bit more consistently, because, that can make a huge difference in a series. You start throwing that body around, especially on the forecheck against defensemen, and especially against the Leafs defense.
Yeah, which obviously they're gonna be facing in the first round, and this you never want to go in on Vasilevsky, but clearly he has not been as good as he's been in the past, which is the best goalie in the league. And when he's not playing at an elite level, sometimes it feels like the Lightning are just not an elite team. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but he's the best in the world, and he has to play at that level for them to win a Stanley Cup championship. Do you see any difference in Vasi? Is there? I thought for a while he just wasn't seeing the puck real well. What are you seeing with him?
That's the focus, right? That we talked about with the entire team. And you talk about the amount of high pressure, high leverage hockey he's played. I mean, he's played almost every single minute. I think he got, pulled in a game last year for the first time in the postseason, but he's played almost every single playoff minute in the last 3 years. And that's a lot of hockey on top of the regular season that he's played. And, I think Brian Elliott's presence the last 2 years has helped kind of take some of that burden off of him. Because remember the COVID year?
Yeah.
They went to Detroit for back-to-back games, this whole back-to-back schedule. They didn't even take him. Didn't even put him on the plane, right? Because they wanted to kind of give him a rest, because they were afforded to at that time, because teams were required to carry 3 goalies with them. So you know that the team has that in their thought process, and that's where I think Elliott in particular this year, I know his numbers don't reflect it, but he's played very well this season for them. He's coming and giving them quality starts, which is what you want from your backup. And at the end of the day, any less pressure you can take off of him is going to be better. How much, I don't know, criticism is not the right word, but in particular in the playoffs, how many people were saying, "Oh, he can't stop the shots high to the glove side, so everybody's targeting the glove side." Well, where else are you going to shoot on Andrei Vasilevsky? He's got every other area of the net covered because of what he can do. I think the one thing that this year in particular has been the long range shots, and this has kind of been something the last few years that kind of find a way through and sneak through the 5-hole.
Yeah,
some are tipped, some are deflected, and that factors into it. But he's probably let in a few too many long range shots this season, so maybe that kind of ties into not being able to find the puck as well as he has in the past. But they need him. Absolutely, you have to have your goalie focused and locked in, and knowing him, I think he'll be fine once the puck drops game 1 against Toronto, no matter whether it's here or there.
And Eric, as I look across the landscape of at least the Eastern Conference, and we can look out beyond that, you look at the real contenders. The only crack you might see, and the only advantage you might see in some of these games against Boston, against Carolina, against some of the others, is your goalie. You would always say, okay, Boston may be better 5-on-5, but Vasi gets the check in terms of whoever Boston's going to be putting out there. And when I look at some other teams, it's Vasi's the difference, right? So he has to be great. So talk about some of the goaltending of the other contenders and where they're at. With obviously Shesterkin is, with New York is I'm not going to say he's better than Vasi, but if I had to say one guy, that might be a guy that I would say it might be closer to even. But anybody else, I don't think so. What do you think?
Well, even this year, Shesterkin, he was an MVP candidate last year. He has not put anything close to those numbers up this year. So he's not been as intimidating as he was last year. to go up against him. So I would even say this year he's kind of taken a step back. So we'll see how he responds, but he's capable of it. I mean, he is capable of stealing games still. He's probably the only guy who's even close to the tier that Vasilevsky is on, because, Boston's got Linus Ullmark. Is anybody sold yet on Linus Ullmark in the playoffs? Until you have success in the postseason. I mean, he didn't even start the playoffs for them last year. And he's having a
0-2, right?
great year. Yeah, he's having a
0-2 in
great
the
year this
playoffs.
year.
Come on.
Yeah, and so he's been great this year. The Bruins have been great this year. Historic first, fastest team to 50 wins and everything. And they're kind of going through their little bit of a lull right now. I think they lost 3 out of the last 4. They lost to the Blackhawks the other night. Taylor Raddysh with a hat trick in that game for Chicago. Carolina, Freddie Anderson. He's always been good.
Yeah.
But he's never been great.
Right.
And he's kind of on that path again. And he's got a great team in front of him. I think Carolina might actually play better defense than the Bruins do in terms of how they maintain puck possession and they pressure you and everything that they do. And Freddie Anderson's been good, but he still has to show it in the postseason. He has to be healthy, right? He wasn't healthy in the postseason last year.
Right.
That's a big reason why they lost that second round matchup, to the Rangers. The Devils, again, question marks with their goaltending. Is Vanacek the real deal? Is who's their backup? Akira Schmidt, I think, is their backup. They still got Mackenzie Blackwood. He hasn't been healthy, but there's question marks in goal for New Jersey as well. And Toronto, every year they have some sort of a goaltending question mark.
Right.
Is Ilya Samsonov, is he the guy? They brought in Matt Murray to be the guy. Surprise, surprise, Matt Murray has not been able to be healthy this year.
Right.
And when he's gotten back, he hasn't been good. So there's huge question marks once again around the Leafs goaltending. So, when you put it all together, nobody's in Vazzy's class. Even in the Western Conference, there's nobody in his class. So of all the contending teams in the East, they always have the advantage in net when it comes into it. Now, the Bruins play great defense. Carolina plays great defense. The Leafs this year have been really good in terms of limiting the chances against and everything that they learned from the Lightning beating them last year. So they're a better team overall. But when it comes down to the goaltending, there is not a team out there that you can say is even equal to what the Lightning have.
Erik Erlendsson joining us here. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's why maybe you think Coop gives Vasi some breaks here, especially with Elliott playing so well and them locked in. These final 12 games, how many of those do you think Vasi plays? Will he give him some time off? What do you think?
You still get some back-to-backs in here.
I know.
Right? You get
Vasi likes
back-to-backs.
to play.
He wants to play. Look, they've had to tell him, they've had to save him from himself sometimes.
Right.
I mean, you're at the point of the year where he doesn't take part in morning skates just to not come in. And, again, it's not necessarily a physical thing, but it's, John Tortorella used to say it all the time. It's the grind of putting on the equipment and putting on the gear and taping everything up. And, yes, they like their routines. That absolutely they do. But, you have to kind of make sure he gets rest whenever he can. And that's something he's had to learn. And he's admitted that he's had to learn that through the years. 12 games left after tonight. He probably gets 7 of those, I would say. Again, there's another back-to-back in New York in there in a couple of weeks as well. But the good news is that the schedule is going to lighten up a little bit. So at least there'll be some true off days and some decent practice days involved as well. But yeah, Vazzy's going to get his starts. There's no doubt.
Erik Erlendsson joining us here. And last question about this team before we'll take a break, and then we'll get into some of the history and the alumni stuff coming up. If there's anything on this team, I mean, I look at this team in a couple ways. Like, they've had their lulls, but I also say, okay, they're going into the playoffs now with a healthy Braden Point playing his best hockey of his career, in my opinion, with a chance he's probably going to hit the 50 goal mark this year. You've got, I think the new additions are really, really good players and that can really help them in the ways that they need. Brisebois, with no cap money at all, pulled off what I think are 2 excellent additions that give them some energy and some life here. If there's one cracking chink in the armor, is it secondary scoring? Is that third line and fourth line? Do they need to step up and be a little bit more a part of this? What do you see as their biggest weakness heading into the playoffs?
To me, it's on the back end. I think the potential for secondary scoring is there. When everybody's healthy, if they have a third line of Nick Paul with Jeannot and Ross Colton, it's 2 guys that have scored 20 goals, and Nick Paul is approaching 20 goals this year. So you've got the potential for some scoring depth there. I think you'd like to see more. I mean, Pat Maroon's only got a couple of goals this year. Corey Perry's at 12 after having 19 last year. So you're not getting quite the same production in that aspect. So you can always use secondary scoring. But I look at this decor, and we knew with the absence of Ryan McDonough and even Jan Ruda on many levels, they still have question marks on what they're doing on the back end. That's why Darren Radish is up here right now and getting some looks and getting some time. You know, they still haven't figured out who's the guy who's going to take minutes, a bulk of the minutes next to Victor Hedman, right? It was a question in training camp, and here we are with 13 games left in the season counting tonight. Who's taking those minutes? Is it Bogosian? Is it Radish? Is it Nick Perbix? I mean, they still don't have that question mark. The only pairing that's looked – well, they've had two pairings that have looked, pretty good at times this year. One has been Sergachev with Perbix, and the other was Ian Cole with Erik Chernak. And even that pairing has kind of taken a slip here a little bit. So I think the fact that we're still, this close to the end of the regular season and we don't exactly know what the defensive pairings are going to look like, that's a bit of a concern for me heading into postseason. And, and Victor Hedman, as great as he is, has not been the Victor Hedman we're used to this year. And maybe that has to do with the fact that they haven't found a consistent partner for him.
Yep. All right, we're gonna. I've opened it up for questions, and we got one that we'll get to in the next segment. Thomas Casper wants to know who finally paid the $50 million Lightning expansion fee. Was that? I think it was actually the Kokusai Green people that actually did, and that's a story in and of itself. So yeah. We'll talk about that, and also breaking news: Chase Edmonds has signed with the Buccaneers, running back, 1 year. Veteran minimum. Nice pickup. Guy can catch the ball out of the backfield, play for the Broncos and the Dolphins last year. Solid veteran guy, gives you a little bit of burst. So another good pickup for the Buccaneers. All right, we'll take a break, come back on the other side, and we'll talk more Lightning history with the great Erik Erlendsson. Stay with us. Law Group. Have you been injured in an accident, in an auto accident, truck accident, motorcycle accident, at work, or at a place of business? Well, call the Jeeves Law Group and get the personal attention that you deserve. I made the mistake many, many years ago with going with one of the bigger law firms, the national law firms. And let me tell you, getting a call back from those folks was next to impossible. Weeks and weeks would go by, never get a call back. That doesn't happen with the Jeeves Law Group. Personal attention is what they're all about. You call the Jeeves Law Group, you will be part of the family. They will represent you in a vigorous and aggressive way against the insurance companies. These larger companies will promise bigger settlements, but it's the Jeeves Law Group that will get you the best results. If you're tired of dealing with these bigger law firms, check out the Jeeves Law Group. Go to jeeveslawgroup.com, tell them JP sent you, get a free consultation. It's the Jeeves Law Group. Scott Jeeves has been representing clients in the Tampa Bay area for over 25 years. Give them a call. It's a free call, 727-894-2929, 727-894-2929, or go to jeeveslawgroup.com. Hey guys, JP here for the Gold and Diamond Source. There is no better place to shop for jewelry than the Gold and Diamond Source. We know that. They are the family jewelers, and they will treat you like family. It's always a fun experience. Just head on over there. You will not find a better selection anywhere in the world. It's a jewelry super center. They've got engagement rings, necklaces, earrings, pendants, chains, and thousands of diamonds to choose from. They're all right there. They don't have to ship anything in. They have jewelry for every price range as well. Guys, if you're looking for some of those baller watches, they have a great selection. They have new and used. You can get some great collectibles there as well. And if you're looking for some more affordable gold and diamond jewelry, you have to check out the Emily collection from Emily Johnson Weintraub. Emily created this collection for people who want to wear and stack elaborate jewelry but don't want to pay the big ticket prices. You got to check this stuff out. The Gold and Diamond Source has plenty of options to accommodate any budget, interest-free financing for up to 5 years, and a layaway program, 20% down and only 6 monthly payments. And this month only, get up to 15% off the March birthstone, which is aquamarine. Like we always say, keep it local, folks. The Gold and Diamond Source, Julie and Steve Weintraub, such great philanthropic benefactors. So let's keep it all local here when we have the opportunity, right? It's the Gold and Diamond Source, 3800 Olmerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com. Ladies and gentlemen, are you looking to lose weight or just lean up for bathing suit season where there are so many diets and chiropractors and weight loss clinics out there? You don't know where to start, right? We'll start at Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Chris Lugo, PA, and his professional staff will devise a personal plan for you that gets results and will help you keep the weight off. Everybody metabolizes food and supplements differently. Many of these other approaches are designed for the masses. So how's that going to work for you specifically? It's not. Chris will spend one-on-one time with you to find out what works best for you so the weight comes off safely without the use of harmful drugs and side effects. Call 844-977-3477 or go to BAMMC.com. Tell them JP sent you for priority scheduling. 844-977-3477 or BAMMC.com. Insurance coverage can be confusing and expensive. I mean, where do you start? Which companies can you count on to pay out fast and fair? Well, call the great folks at Italiano Insurance. It's a family-owned business. Jeff and Nat Italiano are carrying on the 60-year-plus tradition of giving amazing customer service and giving back to the community through their annual backpack drive for needy students and their support of the local pediatric cancer patients. But it's the customer service that sets them apart. They can shop all your insurance needs and save you big-time money. Don't hop on the internet and waste time looking at some bogus reviews. Talk to knowledgeable agents and not some voice-generated robot. These are confusing times for homeowners, and Italiano's team of experienced professionals can provide the right coverage for every situation: home, auto, business, life. It's Italiano for all the pieces of your life. Call 813-877-7799 or go to ItalianoInsurance.com.
Pure sports. JP is back on.
Welcome back.
FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show, brought to you by the Jeeves Law Group and Italiano Insurance and American Mortgage Services. Scott Fitzgerald, my man, best mortgage broker in the business. If you are in need of a home loan or a refinance, he is the dude, and we'll get you the best rates, go through all the different options to get you the best rates, and we'll help you out with your personal finances as well. You can get him at scott@amstampa.com, scott@amstampa.com, and we'll be heading out to the Valspar here in a little bit. Erik Erlendsson is joining us here. You going to get out to the golf tournament at all this weekend, Erik? No, you got probably too much hockey to deal with.
Too much
hockey stuff and all kinds of stuff, right?
There's too much hockey going on, man. This stretch has just been rough. It really has. Fourth straight weekend of back-to-back games. I mean, that's a lot of hockey. So
yeah.
Hockey game tonight, Hall of Fame inductions tomorrow, and then hockey game Saturday and Sunday. So not a lot of time to squeeze in over to Valspar.
Looking forward to the Hall of Fame tomorrow night. Another great thing in the 30th anniversary season here, where Phil and Vinny and Marty go in exactly as it should be. I love that they've created this Hall of Fame. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to manifest itself. Is there going to be a spot in Amalie Arena for the Hall of Fame with pictures and jerseys and stuff like that? Where's that going to be?
It will eventually be built. I don't know exactly where they said it was going to be, but it will be in the arena. So, there'll be a little area off for, I mean, you kind of see it around, especially the upper level, like the Lightning Legends. You see all the photos of the players that are up there. So there'll be something set aside and built. It's not built yet. It's in the plans to have that happen. But there'll be a little Lightning Hall of Fame. It's kind of like, what is it, the Hitters Hall of Fame at Tropicana Field? It'll be a little bit something like that, probably.
Cool. That'll be great. Hey, before we get into some of the history and all that stuff, I want to give you a chance to hit some other topics that we were going to talk about. And I know you're a big U.S. men's national team fan, and I am too. I get a little bogged down in some of the politics that are involved in it. So if you could explain the latest of what's going on with the head coach and the Reyna family and this shenanigans that's happening, what's happening?
Yeah, so the U.S. Soccer just came out with a report on the whole incident involving Greg Berhalter and his now wife that were brought to light by Claudio Reyna and his wife, who were Gio Reyna's parents. You talk about backdoor politics and everything else. There's just too much drama kind of going on, and they found no necessarily wrongdoing with Berhalter. I mean, again, it involved his now wife. They weren't married at the time, but this is I think 30 years ago, so they've been married for like 28, 29 years at this point that was brought to, because of the situation with the way Gio Reyna was handled in the World Cup, where he was told he wasn't going to have much of a prominent role, even though he might be the most talented player, not necessarily the best player, but the most talented player in the U.S. pool was told he wasn't going to have much of a role in the World Cup, which to me is just crazy to
Right.
think about when he's 20 years old. So it's come to light because the CONCACAF Nations League kicks off this week. So they've called players into camp, and Gio Reyna is one of the players that are called into camp, which comes just after this report came out from U.S. Soccer. The big question for me is, and Christian Pulisic was actually asked this question for Chelsea the other day, and of course, a prominent name in U.S. soccer, probably the biggest name in U.S. soccer. Yeah. He said a lot of this stuff is childish, and he's right.
Thankfully,
that they need to move on from this, and I think the best way to move on from this is to look. I think Gio has come out and said how much he's learned from this, and and a lot of it is parent driven here. It's not necessarily the player, even though he said he didn't handle himself very well in camp for the World Cup. He could have handled himself better, but again, 20 years old. If we're all based on our actions at the age of 20, a lot of us would be in a lot different places. But move on from the Reynas. As great of a player as Claudio was for the U.S. men's national team and a prominent player he was, move on from him. And more importantly, move on from Greg Berhalter. Because if you bring in Greg Berhalter, it's always going to come up, right? It's always going to be part of him. And look, there are a lot of people, including myself, who weren't fans of the way he handled the World Cup, even though they got out of the group stage. Yeah, you have to move on to it. There are a lot of great names out there who have interest in the U.S. job. I think it's time to move on from Greg Berhalter. And with the team coming back to play here, they got a game this next coming weekend. They're actually in Orlando a week from Monday, for a game as well. So it's time to move on from the drama and get this program, which is as talented as it's ever been. The pool is as deep as it has ever been in the history of U.S. soccer. There's a potential greatness for this team, especially co-hosting the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the doorstep of hosting a World Cup, and we don't even have a solidified coaching situation. Yeah, and we've got the best talent. So, I mean, clearly this makes a huge difference. Who is going to direct this team? And it's got to start now. I know 26 is a ways away, but it's got to start now, right? I mean, you've got to
cycle starts soon.
Yeah, you got to start building chemistry here. And what's this new coach going to do? Is he going to, lean on these younger players? I think that's what everybody would want to see, right? And it's their time, right? It's for Pulisic and Reyna and all these young guys, the midfielders that played so well. Yep. I mean, there was a lot to love about that experience in this World Cup, but there's also a lot to hate. And the way it was handled. So who do you think that next coach is, and what are kind of the pros and cons and the possibilities here?
Well, I don't know who the coach is going to be, but I mean, Tata Martino, who coached Mexico, who actually lobbied for the job before Berhalter got it. Yeah. He was forced out in Mexico because they didn't get the results that they were looking for. So maybe he's not as high on the list anymore. Thierry Henry actually expressed interest in the national program. I don't know how, he hasn't done a ton of head coaching. He did some for some youth level in France for the club teams. He was an assistant to Roberto Martinez for Belgium, which never seemed to quite get over the hump despite that generation of players they had. So there are at least names who have interest in it. You talk about politics. I mean, one of the reasons people think Berhalter got the job is because his brother at the time was a COO of U.S. Soccer. Right. Yeah. So there was politics kind of played in that one too. Yeah. And there's too much with U.S. soccer trying so hard to force MLS to work. Yeah. Right. And Berhalter, who was part of the U.S. men's program for a while, had success at the MLS level. Well, don't try and force MLS. Don't try and tell it, because MLS is never going to compare with the top leagues in Europe. It's just never going to happen. It's great for the U.S. I think it's great to see the youth or the success of Atlanta and the success of Portland, and Austin and a lot of these markets that have kind of come in. It's great for soccer in this country, but the quality of the league is never going to compare to Europe. So stop trying to tell us it's going to be that way, and just go out and find the best coach. I don't care where he coached. If he's the best guy for the job, bring him in.
We'll see what happens there. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, we found out yesterday when he came out of the darkness that the Packers were like, yeah, thanks, no thanks. And this is actually a great story right now because it's a pissing match between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So now Rodgers is like, all right, screw you. I want to go play for the Jets, and I want to go play for the – and now the Packers are going, okay, well, we want 2 first-round picks. And the Jets are going, we're not giving you 2 first-round picks. You got to get rid of this guy. Nobody else is going to take him. Nobody else can really afford him. So you're kind of stuck with us. And the Packers are like, no, we don't have to get rid of him. We can keep him on our roster, and then you guys, everybody else has passed you by. You're going to have to play Zach Wilson or whoever the hell you're going to have to play. And so both sides can now dig in their heels, and it's just a pissing match. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think it's kind of funny, actually, with everybody that's involved, because the Packers really can burst because otherwise they're going to have to take a $40 million dead cap hit this year instead of a $10 million cap hit. So you know they don't want to do anything until June 1st. And so Rodgers has to just sit there and the Jets have to sit there and stew until June 1st. And the bad blood between these two, it's just too good, man. I absolutely love it. I think eventually he's going to play for the Jets, but it's both franchises are going to be handicapped by the way this thing is being handled, and that's great for the Bucs. You know?
Yeah, there's how much drama has there been around Aaron Rodgers in the last couple of years? It's incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, part of the diva class of quarterbacks in the NFL. He can still play though.
Yeah, he can. He can, but but did he elevate the Packers to the playoffs last year? Nope, no. He sure didn't. No. Part of it was because part of it was because they went and got Jordan Love instead of a receiver, and they haven't really surrounded him with guys. And they bring in young guys, but then he doesn't come to OTAs to get chemistry with them. This to me is a perfect example of what happens when you have a talented diva person who is more about himself than he is about the team. And that's kind of the way Aaron Rodgers has always been. He doesn't elevate everybody else like, say, a Tom Brady does or a Drew Brees does or everybody else and really, get into the fabric of the team. It's always just kind of Aaron and then whoever he wants to be nice to on the team, and everybody's got to kiss his ass. So I think it takes the Packers down. I think it takes the Jets down, which, we're more worried about the Packers, but it's kind of endemic of where we are with the modern day athlete right now, in my opinion.
Have the Jets not learned enough about taking on former Green Bay legendary quarterbacks into their midst? I mean, it's just another drama-filled situation with everything they went through with Brett Favre, and now with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we'll see what happens when and if he gets on the field with them. But yeah, there's just a lot of negativity surrounding the whole situation, and so usually when there's that much negativity, it doesn't come out very positive.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I want to tap into some of your knowledge. Any other things you wanted to bring up today before we get back into the Lightning?
I just want to say to the USF women tomorrow, good luck against Marquette.
Oh, my God.
They got screwed by the committee.
Golly. I mean, first of all, how the hell are they an 8 seed?
Again.
Second of all, in South Carolina's bracket,
yeah.
So you're going to put – first of all, it ain't fair to South Carolina that they're going to have to play USF in the second round. Now, I'm pretty sure it could be, they could be upset, and then everybody's going to be, well, why were they an 8 seed, right? Well, why? It's bad. Somebody at that committee does not like Jose Fernandez. I don't know what the hell that was, but when they saw the bracket, they must have been going, we got to go to Columbia, South Carolina, and play the number 1 team again. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah. It's Kevin keeps telling me that the entire NCAA doesn't like USF program for whatever reason, because they kind of do the same thing to the women's soccer team. For a while there, the women's soccer team was really good, especially when they had Emily Vienne as their striker. They were always put into FSU's bracket, right? Always. Right. And if they were going to get anywhere, they're going to have to try and get past FSU, which has obviously been one of the top programs in women's soccer for a long time. He told me, even as all the bracket predictions and everything else were suggesting that USF was a 7 seed, which still seemed kind of low for a team that went 15-1 in their conference and were ranked in the top 25 at various times, even late in the season. He said, nope, you watch, they're going to make him an 8 seed. I said, you're crazy. They're too good. And sure enough, they get put as an 8 seed against Marquette tomorrow, potentially matched up against South Carolina in a round 2 matchup. Yeah, it's they got screwed over by the committee in this big time.
And speaking of the tournament, going to be tipping off here in just a little bit. News today that Bill Self, Kansas coach Bill Self, will miss Thursday's game against Howard as he continues to progress from a recent health issue. Had a heart scare. They put in a couple of stents. But they're thinking that he will maybe eventually be able to coach in the tournament. But That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's tough. That's tough. Coming off that situation, we know how pressure packed it can be, especially for the higher seeds in this tournament to try and pull it off. I mean, I think Bill Self needs to take care of himself here and let things play out because in most situations, first and foremost, your health is the thing that matters the most.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you have any picks for March Madness? I really haven't really watched college basketball hardly at all this year, to be quite honest with you.
The only thing I ever pull for is for Gonzaga to win.
Why is that?
Because they're kind of the underdog school. I know they've been a powerhouse here for a little bit, but they just haven't been able to kind of get to the top of the rim. If we can kind of play off a little bit of an analogy there, I just like to see Gonzaga win a championship. That's all.
Me included. All right, I have to ask you this because I knew you're a big music guy. What's the most you've ever spent for a concert ticket? Your best concert you've ever been to?
The most and probably the best as well was probably Billy Joel and Elton John.
Oh, yes.
I think we might have paid at Amalie, and this was a number of years ago because I've actually seen those two guys together 3 times. I want to say this was the second time we saw that. I think those tickets were $150 or $175 each in club level. Because normally, I'm up in the 300 level and finding the cheapest possible tickets. But probably those for sure. I've seen we've seen Billy Joel a dozen times probably,
right?
And every time he puts on a great show. But man, Def Leppard was always good when I went to go see them a couple of times.
What year did you see Billy Joel and Elton John?
The first time was actually at Old Tampa Stadium.
Yeah.
So that was probably 92.
Yeah, that was the year I saw him there. I saw him in Orlando, and it rained. Yeah. It was like a 3-hour delay, and they came back at like midnight. And they played till like 3 a.m, and it was like, we're not allowed to do this. There's a noise ordinance, but we're doing it anyway. And it was worth the wait. It was one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen in my life. You knew every word. I mean, between the two of them, how many number one hits? 100. I mean, it's just like one song after another. You just can't stop singing. It's just absolutely unbelievable. See, now Def Leppard, I never really got into the big hair bands, as I like to call them. I don't know why. It never, like Poison, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses. Just never really. Not that their music isn't good. I just never really got into it for whatever reason.
Yeah. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And in fact, a lot of times I listen to Hair Nation on my Sirius XM radio. Right? Not as I've actually listened more to Classic Rewind these days, but Hair Nation was always up there.
Yeah, I grew up with Springsteen and Bob Seger. John Cougar, as we used to call him. A lot of those bands. Molly Hatchet, Southern Rock, and Leonard Skinner was big. My first concert I ever went to was Fleetwood Mac with the Cars opening for Fleetwood Mac. Wow. That was strong. Wow. The Hollywood Sportatorium. This got to be 1979, 1980 maybe. Worst concert venue in the history of the world. The Hollywood Sportatorium, the tin shack, erector set with a tin roof. It's terrible. But I saw Springsteen there. That was, those were the high school and the college days where you just, you get a ticket for $25 and it was the greatest thing you ever done in your life.
Oh yeah. I remember we went to go see Don Henley at Sundome and we complained that the tickets were $25.
Right.
And then we complained even more when the concert shirts were $20.
Oh no. I saw a concert shirt. It was like the basic shirt was like $75 now.
I think 40 is kind of the going rate. I actually just saw Train on Friday at Strawberry Festival. I think the shirts were $40. The long sleeve, you start to get into that. Then the hoodies, now you're talking $75 to $100.
How was Train? That's a good group.
Yeah, no, I've seen them a few times. Haven't seen them in a few years. Pat Monahan is actually the only original member still left with the band. Their lead guitarist actually though is from Tampa, which was kind of cool. I didn't know that little nugget. But yeah, no, they were good, and it's the first time I've seen a show at the Strawberry Festival, even with some of the great bands.
I've never been. I heard they redid the venue. Is it nice?
Yep. Well, I was never in the old one, but this one was nice. We actually sat. We weren't on the ground. We were actually in the stands, but we were only 2 rows back, and it was a great view because you're elevated, right?
Right.
And you got nobody in front of you standing or anything, so we had a great view of the stage.
Yeah. How many does that seat? Like, is it more than the amphitheater? No, it's less than the
No, it's
amphitheater.
it's less than the amphitheater. It probably seats maybe 9 to 10,000. Probably higher than 10,000.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure, but
they got some good acts over there too. I
yeah,
heard Wayne Newton's coming
yep.
over there. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Well, he was Friday, and because Pat Monahan mentioned he had run into Wayne Newton, because I guess Wayne Newton performed earlier the day. Willie Nelson always comes to the Strawberry Festival. Leonard Skinner closed it out on Sunday night. The Pointer Sisters were there. I mean, they get some pretty good
God,
acts that come
yeah.
through there. Ludacris was there. I'm not a big R&B fan, but Ludacris was there.
I saw Luda at SeaWorld a few weeks ago. It was hilarious. Friends of mine want to go. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's go see Luda. And it was good. It was fun. I love some of these throwback acts, man. I just love them. And at first I was like, yeah, how good can they be? But I saw the Eagles last year and they crushed. I think they're coming actually
A
next
week
week.
from Tuesday.
Coming
Yeah.
back. They're doing Hotel California again. I played a lot for the tickets last year, so I don't know if I'll go see it again, but they were fantastic. I mean, you want to talk about and they just nail it. Everything is so good. I think Joe Walsh is sober now. He's so much better than he used to be. I mean, he's really, really good. I mean, the quality of the music is just. I saw REO Speedwagon,
Yeah.
and they were good. 73, 74 years old. They were good.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't necessarily hit the high notes like they used to, but the quality of the music is fantastic. So they got some staying power. There's no doubt about it.
Yep, for sure. And they're building off of us in this demographic that
Oh my
grew
God!
up listening to their music. So of course we're going to flock back to it, right? But they still sound for the most part pretty good, and I think that's a testament to how well they've kept themselves in shape. One of my favorite bands actually is Night Ranger, and I've seen
Night
them
Ranger.
several times.
Yes.
Their music is still good. Jack Blades is their bassist and lead vocals on a lot of stuff. He is still as energetic as ever. But Kelly Keagy was the one who sang most of their hits, the drummer.
Right.
He's not what he used to be. Singing Sister Christian is not as easy for him. He's in his 70s and he had a heart surgery not that long ago. So he's kind of struggled, but I still do enjoy when Night Ranger comes around, go finding them.
So I have to admit this on the show here. I will be going to the Taylor Swift concert with my daughter. So I didn't pay like the crazy stuff. I got face value. So
wow, good for you.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. But I've taken something that my daughter and I have been doing since she was probably 6 or 7 years old. And so every time she tours, we go. It's kind of, our thing. She loves the music. I kind of like the old stuff. I do. The mid pop stuff is awful. The last couple albums though, I'm pretty good. She's getting back to her roots a little bit. So I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Swiftie. I'm going to enjoy the concert.
Nothing wrong with that. She's a great artist.
Yeah. Even though some people say she can't sing.
But she can write though.
She can.
Her lyrics are something else.
Yeah. And you,
a little spiteful, but
yeah. But it's raw. I don't care whatever you got to say it, but say it well and make it entertaining. And she does that. And I got tickets to go see Luke Combs, which is going to be, I love his music. I freaking love that guy. Really raw, really good stuff. And I've been trying to get some tickets to Morgan Wallen. Are you a Morgan Wallen fan?
I have to admit, I've never heard that name.
You've never heard the name Morgan Wallen? So when I tell you
country?
It's country.
Okay, that's why.
Country pop. If I tell you that the lawn seats, give me a guess. What do you think the lawn seats at the amphitheater are going for Morgan Wallen on the secondary?
On secondary?
Yeah, secondary market.
If they're lawn seats on the secondary, I'd say 75.
$1,000
for lawn seats.
For lawn seats, unreserved lawn seats. I think it was like $980 or something the last time I checked. I mean, you got to be So the good seats are like $2,500, $3,000 a ticket. I'm like, you had for Morgan. Like, I like his music. I love his music. I ain't never paying that. It's become one of those concerts that you got to go to, right? Everybody around the nation. Did you go to the Morgan Wallen? You got to go to the Morgan Wallen. You got to get these tickets. It's that thing, it's the TikTok dance that is taken crazy. So if you're not seen at the Morgan Wallen concert, then you're a loser. Yeah. So there's now $1,000. I mean, come on. You've never even heard of it. You're into music and you never even heard of it.
No,
It's
I haven't. And I look, I don't follow country music, so that's probably now. I have heard of Luke Combs, but only because I've seen the advertisements for his show.
yes, right.
So I kind of know, just who he is by name. But country is kind of the one genre I don't really get into.
All right. I got to mention also the Valspar Championship. Justin Thomas yesterday met the media there, and I think he's going to play really, really well this weekend. He's highly motivated. So they came up yesterday. The RNA and the PGA Tour said that they're going to, or sorry, the USGA said they're going to dial in the golf ball or dial it back, which is something Jack Nicklaus has been calling for a long time because these courses are becoming obsolete because these guys can, routinely hit it 350 yards. The ball is just bananas, and I don't know if they're probably, I don't know how you stop the technology. It's just going to keep on going. So I kind of like the rule that they're dialing it back. I think it's about time. But Justin Thomas was like, no, this is the stupidest thing ever. He's a tour player. But for me, I think it's a pretty good change. But I don't think the players are going to like it very much. Any thoughts on that in the golf realm?
Technology always wins, right? Until you start to dial back some of the technology, the players are always going to adapt to the technology. I mean, look, it wasn't that long ago in hockey that everybody kind of laughed at the graphite sticks, right? And
Right,
now
yeah.
everybody has them. I mean, Jason Spezza was the last player who had a wooden stick, right? So it's the technology always comes to the forefront. I mean, look at the skates in hockey now. To change a blade out, it's just popping one in and or popping one out and popping one back in, and you don't have to take it off and go sharpen and everything else. I mean, the technology is always going to benefit the players. But I, again, I follow golf a little bit. But if the players can conquer these courses with ease, and it doesn't become entertaining, it almost doesn't become a challenge for the players, and it's not going to be, some people aren't going to want to tune into it.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be so much better because the design of these courses is specifically, they put the traps in a certain area. They put, and they made these courses, these great courses, completely obsolete. So that's no good. All right, so we got alumni this weekend. This is going to be a lot of fun. What are your thoughts?
It's great that they're kind of making this more of a public thing too, right? Like they've always had alumni weekend and they brought guys back in, but now a lot of there's an event I think at Top Golf I think tonight that's going to help raise some money for charity. They're going to go out and do some things in the community tomorrow. They're going to be part of obviously the ceremony on Friday night for the inaugural class. I think it's just a great thing. We're 30 years in this franchise now, and there's a lot of history here. 3 cups is not, since the Lightning came into the league, the only team that's won more cups, I think, is Pittsburgh or maybe Detroit, one of the two. So it shows you how great of a history this franchise already has. And to start celebrating that and embracing that, I think is a fantastic idea. Some of the great players that have come through here. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see some faces I haven't seen in a while. So I saw Ryan Malone around the rink a few weeks ago. It was great to see Bugsy, cleaned up and everything. And he still looks like he could play. He's kind of kept himself in such great shape. So I love the fact that they're finally embracing the history of this franchise.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So tickets are still available for the Hall of Fame tomorrow night at Amalie Arena. There's a Top Golf event tonight. And then, of course, Saturday night will be more fun with Marty in the house and the Montreal Canadiens. Eric, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. We'll hopefully do it again sometime, and appreciate your support all throughout the years. It's been fun covering this team with you for over 20, 25 years, and look forward to a lot more coming up. So thanks again for stopping by.
Hey, my pleasure, JP. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I was a little worried. How can we get through 2 hours? But this is great.
We could do another 2, you and I. We need to scratch the surface. All right, partner. Thanks. Appreciate your time. The great Erik Erlendsson there. Thank you guys for watching in and listening in as well. We will be back tomorrow with more Valspar and Bucks updates. So we will see you then.